It's now 1:30. I'm going to welcome Connie, our instructor for today, who did the Maximizer training in December. Connie, welcome back, and thank you for offering these Maximizer classes over the next 3 weeks. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Shauna. I'm just going to turn my video on for about a minute here and say hello and welcome. I wanted you to see the face behind the voice and to also know that I'm really excited to have you join me here today. So the purpose of today is just to go really way back to the basics and help you discover the wonderful power of user-defined fields, and I'm going to be referring to them as UDFs for short, so now you know that the acronym behind that. So I'll turn my video off so we don't use up too much of our bandwidth for that, and let's go on with the session. So thanks, Shauna, for setting this all up and inviting everybody. And I sounded a bit like a flight attendant going in and out there, but that was real fun. We've got everything organized and everybody's in place, and the recording has started. So today's lesson is all about understanding Maximizer's user-defined fields a little bit better. So remember, as a user, you're defining the field of information you want to keep track of within your Maximizer database. So I'm going to start in terms of explaining this to you. I'm going to start with a quick little PowerPoint presentation, and then I'm going to go on to Maximizer and actually do a demo. And I'm going to do a demo with everything again from the basics. How do I create them? How do I change them, move them, delete them, and so on. So let's start with the actual PowerPoint. And in this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about, and even in the session, we're going to talk about how really one of the purposes of having user-defined fields is to have everything in one place. We don't have to worry about, oh, I don't have that information. I'm not sure. If someone asks you that question, how many people have this or do that, or there's some kind of pertinent information you know you might have written down somewhere, but where is it? If it's an user-defined field, it's just so much easier to get a hold of. So we're going to talk about the access of this user-defined fields. First off, just like everything else in your Maximizer database that is shareable, I know there's a few of you that might have an office with more than one person using Maximizer, so that's who I'm talking to here. And similarly, you don't have to make everything shareable. You can actually say, I want this user-defined field to only belong to me or to the management or to, whatever group needs to see it. Maybe there is maybe you have a volunteer or summer student once in a while helping you with inputting in Maximizer. So you don't necessarily want that information open to that person. Okay, so there is the ability to do that. Now, the whole idea with Maximizer and user-defined fields in particular is that you want to make sure it fits to, I have your company, but in your case, your organization. You want to make it fit so that it tells you the right information. So that's what that's all about. It's customizing what you can get out of Maximizer. So some of the reasons why I'll encourage you to use user-defined fields is because they really are more precise than notes. I mean, we can type a note in Maximizer at any time about anything. We can handwrite a note about anything, maybe put it in our spiral notebook. But if we use a user-defined field, then we can really have it help us to find that information in the future. And there really is no limit on the user-defined fields you have, so keep that in mind as well. And that's why I say I want you to record anything and everything you might need to know. Because in the long run, one of the main reasons people will have it is because it's helping them make a list of some kind or create a valuable report. So the benefits here is just more information. It's actually easier to enter into than a note because it's just a click away. It's one more maybe checkbox to check off. Maybe it's a date that you can pull down from a calendar. And it becomes faster for us to use when we're searching for information in our database. So we're going to do an example when we get into the demo of creating different user-defined fields, and I want to make sure you understand all the options that you have. So this has grown in the last number of years. Some of you might have been using Maximizer for a long time. Some of you might be new to it. But this used to be, I think, 4 actual different types, and now we have 7 different types of user-defined fields. So alphanumeric, meaning any letter, any number can be entered into that field. So actually really anything on your keyboard could be entered in there. So it's almost like a note, but it would be more of a condensed note. Date field, meaning just that. You're going to pick from a calendar for a specific date. Durations is one of the newer ones. Duration is letting you pick how long it's been. So this is where we would put the age of somebody, because we don't want to type in an age, because then we have to keep updating that age every year. We want to type in the birth date under date field, and duration will calculate how old they are. So duration works with the date field. You have to have a date field for duration to work. And then formula, it's kind of like it sounds. It is an actual formula that you can input into Maximizer. This formula field works with the numeric field. So let's say, just going to use a really weird example. Let's say in the numeric field, I keep track of how many girls, how many daughters my constituent or the person that I have in my address book has, and how many sons they have and how many pets they have. My formula could say add daughters, sons, and pets. Okay, like I said, it's a very silly example, but you get the idea. It's a way, whatever formula you can think of for adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, you can do, but again, it has to be based on a numeric field you already have in Maximizer. And then table, I'm sure you've seen this before. If you've done any entry at all in Maximizer, you've probably come across one of these, because a table is a list of items that's available to you. So it's a predetermined list, like a drop-down list of, if you want to call it that you can just pick from. So that's really fast because there's no typing involved there. You just pick from the list. And then the last one is yes, no. So that's all the field says is yes or no. So maybe you want to know, one of the examples I remember hearing in our session that we did in December was somebody said they have red flag people. So if you wanted to keep track of who the red flags are in your address book, then you could say red flag is the field and yes or no is the answer. And so you probably wouldn't fill it in for no, but whenever it's a yes, that's when you'd go to that field and say red flag, yes. Okay, so you'll see an example of this in a few minutes here when I do the demo. Now, with the user-defined fields, it's also important because we do have so much information in Maximizer that we keep ourselves organized. So we want to pick good naming conventions for our user-defined fields and keep it consistent in how we name things. And when you have a whole bunch of user-defined fields that are about one particular thing, it would be a great idea to put those fields into a folder. So one example I can give you that I believe someone's already using out there is issues. So if you're keeping track of the issues people are bringing forth in terms of what the constituents are coming to visit you with, then you could have a folder called issues, and in that folder you have a number of user-defined fields that break down the issues into bigger categories. For instance, education issues is one of the user-defined fields. So I'm going to do an example of that as well. Now, sometimes going back to earlier when I said you could have your user-defined fields shareable or private, sometimes you might want to have user-defined fields private, so you're giving it a particular permission, but it helps you organize the user-defined fields because now you're saying if I bring in a data entry person just to help me in the summertime, I don't need them looking at all this extra user-defined fields about the issues. I just want them updating the basic information about these people. So then if I have the permission set to private so they can't see it, then it helps it be more organized because they have less of a list of user-defined fields to look at. All right, so that's kind of where we're going with our demo. I'm going to switch over now to the actual Maximizer database. Now, I don't have your database in front of us. I just have a sample from my own database, so it's not going to be exactly the same terminology as you would have, but I'll try and keep in mind your words. And with that being said, please remember I don't work in your offices, so if I don't use the right language or the right context sometimes, I apologize in advance. So the first thing we want to do is look at what is it we want to know about the people that are in our Maximizer, and who are these people in Maximizer. And so I'm going to draw your attention to, I have a very short list of test entries here, and I have on the screen in front of us the category each of these people belongs to. So in my world, this is just a couple of examples. They're either a customer to me or they're a prospective customer to me. I could have other categories like a supplier, maybe a colleague, those kinds of things. In your world, you might have, are they a constituent? Are they a volunteer? Are they a VIP? Are they a business? Maybe they're a business supporter. Maybe they're someone that donates to some of the events that you have. So think about that as being the first kind of question you need to answer. So this might be under type of contact. I think I remember some of you mentioning, or some of your colleagues mentioning, that they use type of contact to keep track of this. Category can also be used in this way. So it depends on what you have in front of you for your database. So once we determine this, then we go and we develop our user-defined fields, because we want to know more about. So in my case, on the screen here, I want to know more about my customer. What courses did they take? Which ones did they ask for? What kind of training was it? And similarly, prospects, what are they asking for? How did they hear about me? In your case, constituents, you want to know possibly, what issues they have. Are they a red flag? Did they sign a consent form? Various things like that. So you have very specific fields just for that type of category. So I'm going to go about now and address this by showing you how to update this information. So I'm going to start by going into one of my entries here. So let's pick Jill, or test Jill. And I'm going to go down to the bottom here where I have the pencil, and that's going to let me edit to that entry. So within the entry, I want you to notice that on the right side, that's where I'm seeing category. I'm just going to show you this briefly in case any of you want to use it. If you have another field that keeps track of this information, that's totally fine. But if you are curious or want to see what the potential is, I'll just show you right here. So the drop down here for category is where you would pick at what level do you know them, because kind of what's your first point of contact. So yours would say, again, that constituents or volunteers. This information can only be updated by the IT department. You'd have to call in to Shauna to get this information updated. So maybe it has the right information in right now, and all you have to do is check mark something. So let's say I want to check mark, so customers are already there. Let's say I also want to check mark that they're a partner. In some stuff that I do in my business. So now I can actually have two categories for them if I want to. Somebody can have more than one hat, more than one area that I work with them in. So again, maybe the reason why a lot of people aren't using this particular field is because you can't change the values in it. You have to either have the right values in it right now, or you'd have to call the IT department, Shauna's office, and get them to change it for you. Okay, so let's look at what you can control. So I'm going to just close out of here, save this. Okay, and then what I want to do here is, turn off my phone, is I want to show you, first off, how do I go about making a field to keep track of this? I want to know what type of category this person fits into, and I don't want to use the category field. So I'm going to go to administration at the bottom here, and then go to set up user defined fields. So this is my live database, so just bear with me because it is showing you a lot of information. I'm going to create right off the bat a new folder just for our example so that I can show you some test fields. So a folder is how you can group your user-defined fields, and that's what I'm going to do right now with you. So I'm going to just call it the test folder. And one of the examples that I gave you earlier is that you could have a folder that's called issues. So by the way, it puts this folder at the bottom of my list. just for ease of use today, I think I'm going to move it up. So to move up this folder at the top of my list so I can open it up as often as I need to, I just actually have to click on this button that says move up. And it's kind of slow. There's unfortunately no way of dragging that. I know our tendency is, let's just drag it over there. But on the web-based Maximizer, there's no way of doing that. There would have been a way in the desktop one if any of you were on that one. You have to patiently wait for the machine. And the more you click this, the worse it's going to get. So just take your time when you're moving things in Maximizer, especially when you're on the web, just because you want it to keep up with you and not get locked up on you. If it does get locked up on you, just close everything out and then come back in. And if that doesn't work, then the other troubleshooting advice I'll give you is just turn everything off and turn it back on again. And then the last resort would be to call up Shauna at her office and see if someone can help you there. Okay, so I'm just going to put it so it's the first folder, but you get the idea here. So I'm going to open up this folder. Actually, sorry, I'm not going to open up this folder. I'm going to actually add some fields into this folder. So what I'm going to do is at the very top here is my little toolbar for my setting up my user-defined fields. So we have quite a few options here. I'm going to go to my first option that says add a field. And because I want to address the idea of a constituent versus volunteer versus VIP, I'm going to add in a field for that. So I'm going to add in a field which will be a table. And it's going to be a table because I know what the answers are and I want to keep it consistent. So I'm going to call it type of contact. Oops. Sorry, my keyboard's getting away on me. And so this type of contact field needs to be added to what? I don't need it for my companies, or do I? Would a company be a constituent? Would a company be a volunteer? Would a company be a VIP? You know, you'd have to answer that question yourself to decide if that makes sense or not, right? Do I need it to be as a part of that world? Oh, sorry, I accidentally clicked on the wrong screen here. Be back. I just wanted to see if you guys are chatting with me at all. There. Sorry, now I can see whether you're chatting. And Shauna, you're going to let me know if somebody has a question, right? So I don't have to worry about watching that chat screen.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thanks. And by the way, if the question isn't directly related to what I'm doing, I might just ask you if we can put it offline at least to the end of the session, or even after the session, I can maybe address it with you. Okay, so let's start with so this type of contact. What does it pertain to? I know a lot of you are putting in the constituents and the VIPs and stuff like that, and you're putting them in as individuals. So you might just say it belongs to individuals. If you think you might want to access this information that you have in here and put it on a company, then there's no harm in keeping this checked off. Just be aware that you want to be careful as to where you use that correctly. So I think by default, in most cases when people are first starting user-defined fields, they keep everything checkmarked because they're not sure what they should limit. Now this one is pretty important. In terms of a table, do I want to only have one answer? So earlier I showed you could have somebody be a customer, plus they could be, a VIP or something else. So you probably would want this not to be turned on in this case of the type of contact, because they might have more than one hat. Maybe they're a constituent and they're a volunteer as well. This next part here with this kind of entry is probably, this one's a little dangerous, but let's talk about it anyways. If you say mandatory, what that means, and the reason I say it's dangerous, is that means every time you open up an individual, even if it already existed in your database, if this isn't filled in, it's not going to let you close the entry until you fill it in. So if you want to make sure every entry in your database is filled in with this data, then you can say always mandatory and check off that little circle there. Non-mandatory just means you fill it in whenever you want. And then the last one is mandatory based on a rule. Well, that one is where, I might just give you an example afterwards. I may not do one right now because I don't have an example to give you right off the bat. But mandatory based on a rule would be where you're actually using a field that you already have in your database and you're saying if that field is not empty or if that field contains this. So you're having to create a rule of some kind to say fill in this field based on another field. So maybe I might chat with Shauna later about whether what example I could give you, and we could even just send you as a note after this training if you guys are curious how to use that. But for now, just to be safe, I'm going to say not mandatory, and then you guys can decide what makes sense for you in terms of this area here. Now, full access, this is where I was referring to earlier that you could have some things that are private. In order for that to work, you'd have to say that rather than full access being public, full access is just for yourself. So full access meaning you're the only one that can edit this field or change how this field looks. Read access is a bit different. Read access is who can read it, so see the information in it. So if I change that to Connie, then that means I'm the only one that can edit it, change it, and I'm the only one that can see it. So this is how I would hide it from, say, that data entry volunteer that comes into my office in the summertime. Okay. Now, if there's 3 of you in the office that need to see it, then we have to get into groups, and I'm going to table that and not talk about it here. I'm going to actually leave that. If that is your situation, I would just encourage you, if you're interested, to talk to Shauna further about groups, and she can help you with that example. Okay, but most often than not, you probably have it as public. Now, you can keep track at the bottom of a description for this field, so you can say, more information about what this means. The only thing about this description, though, is you never see it unless you right-click in a certain window. So it's a great idea, but it's not all that useful, unfortunately. So you can test it out, try it out, see if you like that. Oh, sorry, I did forget to mention one other thing here on the screen. So type of contact is a field that you could also say is set to hidden. In this example, I wouldn't choose that, but where I would choose it is maybe there's a field that you use only once in a while. And so rather than having to look at a list of 25 fields all the time, you can look at a list of 20, and those 5 that you hardly ever look at, maybe it's only at Christmas time when you're getting ready for the Christmas mail out or something that you look at it, then you can set those fields to hidden, and then you can choose to see them or not see them. I'll do this example with one of the other fields that we create so you can see how it works and have a live example of it. Okay, so for now, I've got that table field in there, so I'm going to hit save, and then it's going under the test folder. So if I open up my test folder, I keep doing that, so that's my bad. All I need to do is click on the line or click in the area beside test folder. So now I'm seeing type of contact underneath it. And I'm not done yet because I have to fill in what the items are in this table. If somebody went to this field right now to try and input, there'd be nothing there for them to input. There's no values in it. So that's why when I click on this line here, at the top it says items. And by the way, I'm just going to go and try this with another field. See password, it says yes or no. That's a yes or no field I have. That one says items. Oh, okay, that's not a good example. Let's do this one. Use alternate form. That's a field, by the way, that Maximizer gives you, and this would be a good one for you to choose to hide if you are seeing it. But I wanted to show you that one because I know it's an alphanumeric field. So items is grayed out because it doesn't have items. It doesn't have a yes or no. It doesn't have items for a table. That's why it's grayed out. So let's go back to type of contact. Well, I'm going to go to type of contact now, and I'm going to go to items here, and then add an item. So let's add in constituent. Let's hope I can spell these things. If I spell them wrong, you can chat with me about it. Please don't hold it against me. And then volunteer. Let's say that was another one. And notice I have the ability to also hide these ones too. Maybe there's some item I have here that I don't use that often. I don't need to have it populated in my list. VIP. Okay, I'm just going to use those 3 for now. Okay, so I have values in that field. So let's go on, and I'm going to make a few more fields, and then we'll work with these fields so that you can see them in action. So let's add another field. This time I'm going to add an alphanumeric field. So what's a good alphanumeric field? This is a hard one because I see people with all kinds of interesting alphanumeric fields. And the thing I want you to think about is if I ever have to search this, am I searching for a very unique answer here, or am I searching for more than one entry that could have that answer? So what I mean by that is I could have hobbies as an alphanumeric field, but then I have to type in the answer because it's not a table. It's not letting me check a box. I have to type it in. I'd have to type in the answer, sometimes golf or golfing or likes to golf, or, I'd have many different answers. It'd be very inconsistent. So could I search that? Well, as long as the word golf is somewhere in there, that's searchable. But if I used a different one, maybe where I abbreviated things more, then that's where it's going to be harder for me to find that information. So just be aware of that alphanumeric field is, if it's truly unique and there's no way for you to make a table, or the table will be way too long, then that's a good alphanumeric field. So one I'm going to use as an example here. For alphanumeric that I see quite often, and this one's got some pros and cons too, but I'll start with this one, is, let's say, spouse's name. Okay, so that one definitely does not need to be attached to a company. That should be attached to an individual. It could be attached to a contact, because a contact's also a person, and I don't think you guys are using leads, so that doesn't really matter. We don't need that one. So spouse's name, I'm saying, is a bit questionable as well as an alphanumeric field. And the only reason I say that is because rather than putting an alphanumeric field for spouse's name, I could just put a contact with that spouse's name in it. So the reason why a field could be better is because I just want to know anything and everything about this constituent. This is my main point of contact. So one of the things I might like to know is what's their spouse's name. So when I'm talking to them in the future, I can refer to that name. I don't expect to talk to that spouse on a regular basis or even keep track of any information on that spouse. So I don't need it to be a contact. Do you see how that works? So if it's just a piece of information about that original individual, then it's fine as a field. If I expect to want to know a lot about the spouse, then I'd want to have it separate as a contact. Okay, so I'm going to just leave that thought with you. Now, when it's alphanumeric, encrypted would be like if you had a credit card number, you would want to have it encrypted. So that would be an example why that would be used. Set to hidden, we talked about that one already. Displays a hyperlink would be more if you're putting some website addresses in here. But the maximum length is what you really need to pay attention to here. So if I'm saying spouse's name is 29 characters enough for the names of spouses out there, well, it depends. Am I putting in the first name or the last name or both? Then if I'm putting, sometimes they have a different last name, then I might want like 35 characters if I'm putting the last name in sometimes. Okay. Shauna, I'm seeing mentioned another field is occupation. Occupation could be, again, a good one that could be alphanumeric, or it could be a table. So it just sort of depends on what you're looking to have happen with that field. Occupation is, there's a gazillion of them, right? So it can be very unique. Rather than having a table that's 10 miles long with all the possible occupations, alphanumeric is great because you can type in the occupation. But if you ever wanted to search for all the managers or all the people in healthcare or all the people in education, you need to cross your fingers that education or healthcare was typed in each time. And otherwise, you're looking for, okay, to look for the teacher, the principal, all those other names that I might have used in that field. And that's where, if you plan to search on it and try and get a list out of it, alphanumeric is not your field. That's where you want to go back to the table or one of the other ones. Okay. So I'll just put in here first name and last name if different. Does that make sense? Well, maybe not, but I'll leave it at that. Okay, I'm going to keep the access the same. So let's save that one. So there's nothing else to do with that one. That's all I need to know is just it's alphanumeric and its spouse's name. Okay, let's add a couple more. So let's add in date. So this one we'll put birth date. And that doesn't need to belong to a company. That only belongs to an individual or a contact. Now, when you put in a date, what you have here, and I know some of you that might have a database that you've inherited from someone else, and in that there's lots of data already in it. If you ever go into the hot list, which is really your task list, if someone checks this on, that means every person's birth date that is entered is then going to appear in your hot list every single year if they check on the annually recurring, right? So this could make your hot list look horribly long, right? So if you don't plan to use it for that reason, like I don't need to know when their birth date is, especially if I'm going to use this on a lot of people's entries. If I'm not going to take action on it when I see their birth date, then don't put it in your hot list because you're just going to have a lot of reminders that you don't need. If you say annually recurring event, I mean, that's of course true, but when you do that, it doesn't let you see the year. So the birth date means the date they were born. So if I want to figure out their age, I'd want to not show as annually recurring event and make sure that, notice how it's kind of got a check mark sort of in the faintly in the background there. It's retaining the year. So if I type in that they were born in 1985, it keeps that forever. So then I could figure out their age. Okay. You know the deal with mandatory and the rest of this, so I'm not going to go over that again. Okay, I'll just do a couple more just in consideration of time here. So I'm going to go back to field. Duration is where I could use that birth date field. I'm going to go on to numeric. And numeric, Shauna, can you give me an example of a numeric field that people have? Kind of think where, so numeric field is where you just want to keep track of numbers.
Yeah, we don't really have any good examples of that one. I usually don't cover that because I can't think of anything. Unless someone online can think of something. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'll just say in my world, what I see my clients doing, like I have a lot of clients that are in the financial business that use Maximizer, so the numeric might be because they're keeping track of information about their clients, and their clients are saying, hey, our gross income last year, or gross income could be the numeric field, and then they put in the gross income of that client. So then they can know what kind of products to suggest to them for the future. So yeah, I can't think what ones you guys might use, so I'll just leave that one out. Okay, we'll go to field, and we did a table, let's do a yes/no one. So let's do a red flag one here, and we'll let it be attached to all of these things. And again, you guys can choose whether it makes sense for it to be mandatory or hidden. Save that. Okay, now I need to do an oops. I need to do some things wrong because I want to show you how to fix issues here, okay? So I'm going to just add a field by clicking at the top here, and if I go field, and let's just add in another alphanumeric one. We'll use the occupation example. Occupation, we don't need it on companies. Let's make it really big. Oops, sorry. And then save. So I did that wrong on purpose because I want you to see, I have it in the wrong spot, right? It's not going in the right spot. So how do I move it into that folder? Of course, I want to drag it in there, but I can't. So what I'm going to do is go to the Move To button. I'm not going to say move up or move down because that's not the problem. It has to go into a folder. So Move To, and then we want to pick the folder. Sorry, I have a lot of folders. Pick the folder test, and then save. And if we go into test, plus sign to open it up, we see occupation is in there. All right. Now let's say, well, I changed my mind. I don't really need that kind of field, so I want to get rid of it.
So if I go up to delete here now, that will let me delete it. But just before I give you guys open permission to go deleting a bunch of stuff, I want you to be aware of the idea here with deleting. If this field has been in the database for the last 10 years, and if there's data already in it, then when I hit delete, I am, of course, deleting all that data. So there is no undelete, there is no undo. All there is 1-800-SHAUNA and seeing if she can somehow get to a backup, right? So do be very, very careful of deleting anything, but there is a delete button. If you are sure of yourself and you know that that's what you want to do, and in this case, I just made this field, so I'm safe to delete it, then you can certainly go about doing it. It does give you a big warning. It's in capitals, trying to warn you that way as well. So I'll just say, okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing. But believe, even I have made horrible mistakes in the past where I'm like, oh, no, I deleted something. So you could just, accidentally be on the wrong thing. So that's why you've got to pay attention to those warnings, right? Let's talk about a couple of other things that are up here. One of the things I want you to notice, it says reset order. So reset order is just telling it to go in order alphabetically. So let's say I have a whole bunch of user-defined fields. I keep adding and adding and adding. And so what happens every time I add one, in the case of test, I was in that folder, so it just kept adding it to the bottom of the folder. But if I was on mission, it would just add it to the bottom of this list here. And so if I want to get my list alphabetical, because that's what makes sense for me, then I could say reset order, and it'll make this entire list of folders and any fields that are at this level alphabetical. If I want to go to test, I should be able to reset. And I actually haven't tested that one. Maybe we should test that one. Want to test it on my stuff? Sure, let's test it on my stuff, because I'm just thinking I really haven't played with this one for a while. I used to use it in an older version, but what I'm questioning is, if I'm on test, will it reset the order of just test? Shauna, do you know the answer?
I do not, no. But I'm curious.
Okay, so just cross your fingers for my database that we don't mess it up, but just hit reset order and see. Order of all entries you define fields and folders within the current folder.
So to me, that's
reset the test. I think so. Hey, what do you guys think? I think we're safe. I'm going to do it. I'll take the fall. Let's say okay. Hello. Yeah. So all my other fields are still in the same place. Okay, that's good. Now I'll hit the plus sign beside test. Yeah, birth date's on top and then red. So see how it's alphabetical. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing. You might want to look at that, because that's something that, again, with people that have a database that's been around for a long time, you might want to start resetting the order of things. And let's go back to another couple of things that we mentioned earlier. And there might be some things that you have in your database that you're like, okay, I'm not ready to delete it because I'm kind of scared about losing that data, but I'm ready to not see it. So your other option for not seeing it is to just make it hidden. So let's just do that with this alternate form, because we certainly don't need to see that. So I need to click. So I clicked kind of beside it to highlight it, but I need to click on it, and that opens up the properties. And this is where I can say set to hidden and save. Okay, and let's do that on one of our test ones, just because I want you to see it after. So let's go to red flag and click on the, so if I click right on the words, it opens up the properties. And let's make that set to hidden. Okay, I think we've covered most things. Oh, let's tell you one more thing. How could this apply? Oh, you know what I need to do is I don't have a field with, or a folder with issues. I'm going to make a quick folder. I'm going to make a folder underneath my folder, okay? So let's make a folder underneath test called issues. Okay, waiting. And then in issues, I'm going to make a field that's table field called education issues. I'm going to leave it attached to companies because I'm not sure if you guys would need that or not, but I'm going to turn off single value because I definitely don't want that. Okay, and then this is the table, so I got to go to items, and let's add in a couple of items. Let's add in teachers' pension. All right, and let's add in busing. Oops. Oh, that's cool. So when you're adding in the first go around, it does put it alphabetical. Let's just put boundaries. Let's just test out boundaries. See, it's keeping it alphabetical, but if I go out of here and add later, I think it ends up adding it to the bottom. So that's why you have reset order in this one as well. You have move down, so you can move things down if you don't want them in alphabetical order. And of course you have delete to delete that one item if it's wrong, right? So let's close this. Okay, then I think we've done everything up here. One thing I wanted to show you was there is a save as feature. So save as would be, I want to just do kind of a copy of that field. I kind of need a field very similar to it, and I don't want to have to go through all the motions of all the properties again. So let's say education issues, maybe not the best example in the world, but let's just say that that one will work for us. I'm going to go save as, and rather than education issues, we'll call it health care issues, not single value. Hey, you should have kept that. Okay, I'm not very happy about that example. Did I not uncheck that? I thought I did, because the whole point of save as should have been it would have kept whatever I unchecked. Maximizer, disappointing me. Okay, but if I go to items, the items are, of course, all wrong. So I'm sorry, this was not the best example, but let's just go to boundaries. Let's just change that to hospitals. I have no idea what to put for this. Hospitals, and change busing to, I don't know. What else is healthcare? Insurance. Oh. And then I can't think any further than that, so I'm going to delete this last one. So there hopefully is an example that's a little bit more pertinent to what I've just done. Save as is one where you can just kind of copy the properties of the type of field that you have, so you don't have to hit new and pick the field. So it saved you a couple of keystrokes. All right, so let's go and see how this all works. So I'm going to close out of here. I said I was closing. It's taking a minute to update. So some of the reasons we'd want to create stuff like that. Oh, one I didn't do. Shucks. So a couple of user-defined fields that would have been good is whether I wanted to keep track of whether I'm inviting people to a Christmas, or sorry, sending out Christmas cards, or maybe I'm inviting them to an event of some kind. So I want to have a user-defined field for that information. Okay, what's going on here? I thought I closed this. Blues. All else fails, I'll press close a different way. Okay, sorry, don't know why it wasn't closing with the close button, but whatever. We will move on. Okay, so sorry, I was just mentioning another couple of user-defined fields that might have been good to show, and I might have these ready for the next time when we do searching and such, is whether you want to keep track of events that you invite people to, events that they attended, and then whether you're sending out mail-outs to them. So you may want to have one major user-defined field that says all the types of mail-outs you could send out. So whether it's a Thanksgiving card or a Valentine's card or a Christmas card, it'll all be under one user-defined field called mail-out, and the values in it, and that would be a table field, would be Christmas card, Valentine's card, and so on. And then events, the same kind of idea. I'd have an events field, all the things I could possibly invite them to would be listed on there. What event they attended, I don't really want to put in a user-defined field and by that I mean I don't want to put it in there with a date. I don't want to say they attended the barbecue in 2018, they attended the seminar we had in May 2019. you could say in general they attend the barbecues or they attend seminars, but don't put a date or a year behind it. That's better off in your notes area, because in the notes area is where you can say they attended that barbecue. And we can do that globally, and we can talk about that in another session, but that would be better here, because then you can change the date to when it was. Let's say it's 2018. Probably wasn't in February. It's not warm enough for a barbecue in February. So we'll say it's June. Then you have that record of they did attend it. And you could search for, as long as you spell it, kind of, you name it in the same way. So a note would be better in that case because it's very specific to a date. So let's go back to those user-defined fields we created. So someone's saying with the maps, you have a main view. Would we need user-defined fields as well? So, okay, let me just go back, talk about that for a second. So when we're looking at our people in our address book here, you have this main view. Is that the main view you're referring to? This view at the bottom under details. This area here will have some of your user-defined fields, but not necessarily all of them. This area here is customized by your IT department. You cannot customize this because it's customized in the administrator, which you don't have access to. That's this guy over here. So I don't want you to rely on just this area for user-defined fields. This could be very limited. Ultimately, you could get all the user-defined fields you like to use the most in this area, but you'd have to do that with Shauna's help.
Yeah, so one of the things we did create for all of the databases was a main view underneath. So yeah, under the default key fields, we customized one. And I believe you can go into that gear at the top and go in and add other ones that they want. But these ones in here are just ones that we've added in right now. So unless people have gone in and actually customized their own, it's not going to show up in there.
Oh, thanks, Shauna, for mentioning that, because I didn't even realize you guys gave them permissions to customize, so that they can do that. That is awesome news.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for asking that, you guys. That's perfect. So, yeah, if you are using certain fields over and over and over again, then why not put some of them right on that main view here? So I'm going to just add in a separator. So, by the way, add in separator is just a line. So because it put me here, it just put it there. I'm just going to drag it over here. And I have a lot of fields on here that we're not going to be talking about because they were already part of this particular key field area. So I'm just going to get rid of some of them and just ignore the rest of them. Underneath this line, though, I'm going to put in the fields that we did. So let's go in and go to user-defined fields. So we're customizing our view to add in the fields that are most pertinent to you keeping track of and seeing right on your screen right away. Now I believe, let's just see if I can I insert? Yeah, I can just keep choosing the fields and keep inserting. Okay, awesome. I had no idea you guys had that right or that permission to change this, so that I'm glad you guys told me. All right, so it's underneath, so that main view, yours is called main view. I just changed mine under this particular view. You can go into the gear and then add those fields there. So I'm going to say for Jill, I want to type in her birth date. I got to go to the pencil here and then go to this to add in her birth date. We'll say that she's a red flag just because, oh, she probably wasn't born today. Let's say she was born 1990. Okay, and her spouse's name is Jack, because Jack and Jill belong together. All right, okay, and then the type of contact is constituent. So, and I can say she's a VIP, so I can check off more than one. Even though she's a red flag, we'll say she's both. Okay, so let's just save that. You guys don't get the humor that I have as much as I do, but that's okay. Now I filled that in here. Now let's say that that's not all the fields that I have. I mean, you could go to the gear and put all your fields in one space here if you want, put some lines between stuff. Or you could know that you also can go to user defined fields in the tab that's called user defined fields. Now this will show everything. And then just open up. So in my case, I got the test folder. And I've got, so now I see birth date and spouse's name and all that's filled in. And by the way, I can kind of just click on those things. So it's a little bit easier for me to do entry in this screen than that other screen was, because I can just start typing a little faster. I can say his name is Jackie. I don't know. So let's open up issues. And let's say, oh, sorry, I think I clicked that twice. There we go. Education issues, if I click in that spot there, so kind of under the column for value here, if I click in there and then go here, I can pick the fact that they have issues with busing. And apparently I didn't put anything under education issues. What? Something going wrong with my field. Busing, okay. Okay, I haven't had that problem before. I don't know what's happening there. Sounds great to have a class watching you while things are going wrong. I picked busing. You all saw that. It says my selected value is busing. So I say OK. And then it wants to know more. No idea what it's trying to do here. So there's some kind of glitch going on my screen right now. Pretend it's not happening. You didn't see it. I'm just going to say cancel. Let's go to healthcare. Weird. Hospitals. Yeah, it's happening on this one too. Guys are really mean to me today. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner of this user-defined field area and just hit the refresh. See, it's good to know everybody has problems with their technology sometimes. Okay, and now it shows up. I have no idea what it was doing there. Seriously, I've been using Maximizer for 30-some years, so I didn't start yesterday. There's something weird going on. But anyways, it was refreshed and it's better now, so that makes me happy. For the time being. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other things here. So we have at the top of this user-defined field area is that you have an option for filtering stuff, and the filter there lets you say, I only want to see certain kinds of fields. So maybe I only want to see the tables that are filled in. Sorry, the tables. So in this case, I shouldn't say filled in because it's just saying it's going to show me all the tables, but it's showing me all the folders too because there's tables in them, and these are tables here as well. If I turn this off, show blank fields, if I uncheck this, then that lets me see a much shorter list because it only shows me, in this case, the tables that are not blank. So let's change that from tables to all, and everything I filled in so far is showing here. But because I'm not showing blank fields, I don't see any of the other fields available to me. So obviously, if I was doing data entry, I would want this turned on because I want to see all the fields available so I know which ones to fill in. Now, the other one we talked about a little bit earlier was the hidden fields one. So show hidden fields will let me see what fields I've hidden. So another one should pop up. Ah, there's a red flag, right? And that red flag is filled in because I filled it in on the details tab, by the way. But if I don't want to see that one regularly, then I could uncheck show hidden fields, and I don't see that particular field. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of more options there. Now, within Maximizer, these user-defined fields are important to keep up to date, of course, because what we're going to do in the next session is we're going to talk about searching and reporting, and searching and reporting is only as good as the information that is in the system. So that's where you want to make your data entry for this information as easy as possible so that you can keep things up to date. So when you do the report, you do the search, you can find stuff. The other thing with regards to the user-defined fields is we looked at how to enter them over here in the user-defined fields area. We saw that we could modify stuff in the details area and use that gear, which is awesome. But you also could put user-defined fields on this main screen. And that's what we'll do the next session, is I'll talk to you about why you want to put some user-defined fields as a column on your main screen. Just be faster for you to see stuff as a list, and it's kind of as you're getting ready for maybe a report, or maybe you just need to know that piece of information all the time. So you can show that information on this screen. Just mail code is a particular field that I have, and I like to see it all the time so I know who I can mail to and who I can't. Okay, so that's kind of my agenda for today. I hope I showed you a few things about user-defined fields and have you inspired to maybe try some more things out with them. If you have questions, I'd love to hear them now. And if you need me to go back and show anything again, I can certainly do that as well. So I'll just open it up to Shauna and to the rest of you guys.
It looks like we have a question coming in.
Okay. Good.
And Connie, thank you again for this time to go through all of this in great detail.
Good. Good. Hope it was basic enough.
So Lynette is asking, can you show us how to email a group under a UDF?
Email a group under a UDF. Okay, I think what you're asking, I'm not sure what that sentence, okay, I think what you're saying is you want to search on a user-defined field and then email to that group.
That's how I read that question too, yes.
Yes, okay. So then we're going to cover searching next session, but I'll do a quick example of that in case you have to do it before next session or you're not attending. So if I go to search, and then go advanced search. Because user-defined fields are not in my search menu, I have to go advanced to put them into my search criteria. And then I'm going to go add. And I have two options, basic fields or user-defined fields. This is the one I want. We'll go to test. Let's go to type of contact. Choose OK. And let's pick constituent. Choose OK. So I'm searching for all the constituents. Sorry, there's only been, I think, one coming up, but if there was more than one marked as constituent, I would get that answer. And then I'll click on OK. My system's being maybe it's being slow because of us being on Skype. I'm not sure, but I'm clicking on OK, but things are just not OK. Not letting me do it. That's all there is to it, by the way. Okay, and then I'm going to talk through this because I don't know what's going on. It should be, by me clicking on OK, it should give me a list of those people. Oh, you're just making me a little bit not happy. So I'm going to do something. Don't watch this. I'm just going to pretend that search worked. It should have. I'm just going to make it so that this is the only one that should have shown up when I did that search. And then from here, if I want to email to this list, now I don't know, yes, okay, click on the X and then refresh. I struggle with slow internet all the time. Yeah, I don't usually have slow internet, but maybe because I'm doing this session, it's slow for sure. So sorry, thank you, Nancy, for suggesting that. So just to go further, can you guys email directly out of your Maximizer? Because that is a feature available to you. I just don't know if that's turned on for you. Shauna or Nancy, can you answer that?
Sorry,
can they email directly out of Maximizer?
Yes,
is that feature
can.
Available to them? Oh, okay.
Yes.
And as a group then?
Correct.
Okay, actually, I'm going to just undo that search for a second. Shucks. Okay, hang on.
And typically we actually recommend that if they're going to be emailing, that it is a group of people instead of individual people, just so that when MLAs are looking for individual emails that are sent out, they're sent through Outlook. Because these emails are not sent through Outlook, they're sent through Maximizer, and not all MLAs have access to that. So if it's like a newsletter or something, then we typically say, yeah, go ahead and email that through Maximizer.
Okay, good job. I'm just going to see if this can work with Nancy's suggestions. Type of contact constituent. So you're saying hit the X and hit refresh. Ah, Nancy, it worked. Yay. I just hit refresh. I mean, that's logically, that doesn't even make sense to me because I closed out of that search window, but okay. We'll just go with that. So I did the search to say who are my constituents. It brought up these two people. I'm going to then click on the top box there for the check mark to say I want to select these people. And then I want to go to actions and write an email. And that'll send an email to all selected entries. Okay, now any problems? I don't have an email. Oh, it's going to do this to everything that I do. All right, I'll hit the refresh again. I don't know. Write an email. All selected entries. So you'd say all selected entries, okay, and then you would actually go into the next window, which would show you the place to type in your email. And you can pull from an actual email template if you want to create one ahead of time, so that it has it pre-typed for you, or you can type one from scratch. And these people will get the email separately, meaning that it'll say Jill Test on one email and Joe Test on the other. Neither one will know the other one got the same email. So it's better than blind copy. Most people try the blind copy thing, so they don't let other people see other people's email addresses. This is better than that because it sends to all the people on the to line, but one at a time, separately. Okay, so sorry, I don't know what's, I mean, I'll check my internet, but I do a lot of webinars and I never had it lock up this much on me, so maybe it's just the day of the week. Who knows? So that would be the next screen. Hopefully that helps you, Nancy. Sorry, wasn't able to follow through completely with the example. But.
And if you want to see more about emailing, we do have a video on our house that is all about emailing from Maximizer.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I hope this has helped you understand a bit more about user-defined fields, and maybe as your homework, you guys can go to the user-defined fields that you have, take a look at them, see if there's some that maybe you don't need. Do a search of those user-defined fields that you think you want to get rid of. If you go search, like I just did with the constituent one, if I go search and there's a field that I'm thinking, oh, I don't need this field anymore, do a search of them first. It'll show you where it's filled in. Right? So let's say I don't want spouse's name for some reason. And I can go for spouse's name, I can just go A to, so alphanumeric, you can do it this way, A to Z, or actually better than that, it's 1 to Z. We'll kind of talk about these things in the next session. So I'm kind of giving you peeks of the next session. 1 to Z means anything alphanumeric. Or 0, actually, sorry, I should have started at 0. That's the lowest number. Z is the highest letter. So that would find anything with spouse's name, and my search isn't going to work anyway, so I don't even know why I tried this box. But let's hit refresh. It did for whatever reason work with that refresh. So yeah, search for those user-defined fields before you delete them. See if there's anything in them of value, and then you can go about deleting them, or maybe you want to hide them. Okay, so try some of that, maybe move stuff around, create folders. Once you create a folder for something, you can then move other fields into it. And if you had that field on one of the custom views here, even though you move this field into another folder, it'll still find it on this view. It won't lose it. All right, so have fun. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Thanks again, everyone, for attending this Maximizer training session, and thanks to Connie for organizing it and hosting it for us.
You're welcome. Bye for now, guys.
Bye.